My name is Joseph Wicks, and I am your missionary serving with Medical Missions Outreach. I'm so excited to be part of your group as you grow together in this session tonight. And so let's get started. On Sunday, I was able to share with you folks a message out of John chapter 9. And really the focus of the message was how Jesus reached the lost. And I find it interesting as well as encouraging that anything that we're called to do as Christians, we can look to Jesus and his example for us. And I believe that's what John chapter 9 gives us, is a little bit of that template of here's how to do what you're called to do. And I love your focus this month with missions, but yet a personal focus. It's your mission. It's my mission. It's your mission. And I really just love how that brings it to all of us as we're all missionaries. As Bob even said on Sunday, we all have a part as a missionary. And so as we looked in John chapter 9, we recognized how Jesus went about his earthly ministry, how he stopped and noticed people where they were. Jesus in John chapter 9 says that he was on his way somewhere. He was traveling from one place to the next, but he stopped and he noticed this man. And I'm often convicted in my daily whereabouts of going from one place to the next. And as I get there and I finish my day, I look back and I think, what might I have missed? What was I not looking up to see? What was I not noticing? Who was I not noticing? And this passage really convicted me in just a day-to-day mission-minded life of seeing people, and even seeing people maybe as the outcast or the ones who other people won't talk to or spend time with. Jesus spent time with those people, and I'm so glad he did. And so we see that as an example for us to follow as Christians. If you would take a minute together and read John chapter 9, specifically read John chapter 9, verses 1 through 7, and you'll see Jesus' engagement with this man. And as he engages him, notice specifically the attention that he gives him, what he's focused on, and perhaps what he's not focused on. We noticed on Sunday in verse number 2 what the disciples were focused on. So look for that as you read. And then if you want to read through the rest of the chapter, it's a bit lengthy, but think and put yourself in the mindset of this man who had just got done having his eyes open for the first time. He'd never seen the things around him. And picture what he was going through as he shared with his neighbors and the spiritual leaders of that day, and how ultimately they wouldn't believe him. They called him a liar. They said it's a Sabbath day. Jesus wouldn't have done that. And just really try to walk through that story with that man and then celebrate what Jesus does in verse number 35. As Jesus comes to him and seeks him out and shares with him who he really is. So take a minute and read John chapter 9 together. As you read in John chapter 9, you see that Jesus took that time to address this man's physical needs. What was his greatest need? His greatest need was Jesus, and he was not made whole until he recognized who Jesus was and acted upon that. We see at the end of the chapter, he bowed down, he worshiped him. But Jesus didn't start there, which is a bit convicting for me. Jesus actually started back and addressed what his physical need was, which was his eyes, his blindness. And I find that an interesting approach that Jesus took to really just stop and help people with their physical needs. Jesus often takes time in the Bible to stop and heal somebody, stop and listen to their story, or think about the lady caught in adultery. Boy, he stops and he stands up for her. Man, that's what people need around us, is somebody to just stop and love them where they are, to love them right where they are, as messy and as difficult as it is. And I believe that's what we're called to do as Christians, is to look around us for what are the needs. We know, if you're a Christian, the greatest need is the gospel. That's what people need. It's the only need that will last for the eternity. It's the only thing that brings wholeness and completion. But Jesus often helped people with their physical needs first. And I would like to ask you today to think about this question. What are some physical needs around you? Maybe it's around your family. Maybe you live in a neighborhood and there's people around you. Maybe it's your workplace where you spend time with people hours a day. Maybe it's in your school, as you go to school with somebody. What are some physical needs, you could even say emotional needs, just helping out? What are some ways you can help people the way Jesus helped people? Now, I know we can't necessarily heal hands that are withered. We can't open eyes to see, but certainly we can help people in a physical way so that it gives us an opportunity to help them with their spiritual needs. And so take a minute right now and just discuss what you could do to help the people around you with their needs. I hope you were able to come up with some good ways that you can take time to minister to people. And I'll remind you of this. If you're going to help people with their physical needs or even their spiritual needs, it might cost you something. It might cost you some time. It might cost you some money. And I know and I recognize, as do you, we cannot help everybody. There are needs around us that are so great, we cannot help everybody. But when I heard this statement years ago, it really made a difference in my life. When a pastor said, "Do for one what you'd like to do for all." And the needs around me that I see on a daily basis, I can't help everybody. But I think back even last week as I was able to just help one person right where they were, minister to them. They jumped in my car and I gave them a ride 1.5 miles down the road. They had her hands full of groceries. And you know what? I can't give everybody a ride who needs a ride, but I gave one person a ride. And I hope that that makes a difference in their life and as well as sharing the gospel with them. And so I hope that you can think of who that could be in your life that you could influence. But then we also looked at the life of Christ and recognized that Jesus only had 3 years of earthly ministry. It was a short time, but he lived with urgency. We see Jesus often, when he saw a need, he was moved with compassion. That moved with compassion is he acted upon it. He did something about what he saw. And I believe for us as Christians, we also should live with urgency. We should recognize that there are only so many days that we have on this side of eternity. And what we do on this side of eternity affects the other side of eternity. And how can we make the most of that? And one thing that I think it's important for us to differentiate as American Christians is urgency is not busyness. And I know I get that mixed up a lot in my life. I have a lot of things going on. I'm one thing to the next. I wake up, I'm busy, I'm going, all these different things. And it's busy, but it's not necessarily intentional. It's not necessarily doing the things that are most important. And I would like to challenge you to think about and even discuss with those around you right now, what are some ways that we get caught up in the busyness of life and forget what's most important? And then also, how can we combat that? How can you structure your life to make sure that it's one that's lived intentionally, taking time out to help somebody when you need to help them and the Holy Spirit prompts you to talk to them? How can you structure your life maybe a little bit better so that it's a little less busy, but a bit more intentional? Thank you so much for taking time to grow together, and I hope that these thoughts have challenged you a little bit. You've challenged one another in coming up with ways that you can slow down and live a more intentional life, as well as ways that you can look around you and see how you can help others with their physical needs. Certainly we know that we cannot neglect the gospel. The gospel is what changes lives. And so in order to share the gospel, sometimes we just have to start back here and really just help people where they're at. But thank you so much for taking a minute. Thank you so much for having me in church on Sunday. I had a great time. You have a wonderful church with a heart and a heartbeat for others and for missions, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of that. And so I look forward to seeing you again, and I hope you have a great, intentional week of reaching others for the cause of Christ.
Thanks again for participating in Growing Together this week. Please make sure that you take a second and as the group leader or leader of your family, fill out that group recap form so we know that you're participating. And please take time after the discussion to pray together. It's one thing to discuss, but let's lift each other up in prayer to God today.